There are over 200 creatures in Ark, many of which are highly desirable for many reasons and serve a unique purpose. However, there are also quite a few that are plain and simply useless. So in this video, I have ranked the 20 worst creatures you could tame in the world of Ark. As to why I picked these creatures, I focused on 3 main criteria. How useful is it? Is it bettered by another creature, therefore making it obsolete? And finally, would I ever consider taming it? So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Kicking off our list is actually one I didn't want to add to the list, which is going to be the Dilophosaur. It cannot be ridden, has pretty low stats, but is an extremely common spawn on the beaches, which is where most new players start their Ark journey. It is extremely easy to tame, so can be a viable strategy to tame up a bunch to defend your base in the early game. And for struggling new players, can really make a big difference in thriving and surviving over outright dying and dying. It also has access to a turret mode too, which is nice, and as it is also easy to tame, it will give players a good supply of dilo eggs, which can be used to make basic kibble. But for experienced players, I can guarantee most will totally skip the dilo. Sadly, it does have a very limited use and is outclassed by many other creatures even in the earlier stages of the game. Up next is a bit of a controversial one, but to me it is almost useless these days. It is the poor Titanosaur, a dinosaur I so want to love. However, it really doesn't do anything other than look scary and is a nightmare to tame. Once you do finally manage to do that, it is only a temporary one at that. It has absolutely no use in PvE, as it can't even harvest anything, with its only purpose being flattening bases in PvP, as it deals a lot of damage to metal and tech tier structures, so it may still be a little useful in that field. However, the Acrocanthosaurus can also damage metal and tech tier structures, albeit with a lower damage output, but to me it most likely makes the Titanosaur obsolete. At least that is the case in Survival Ascended. I will admit I actually used a Titanosaur way back in the Survival Evolved PvP Legacy days. I remember we tamed one for the first time and were super excited to use it on someone's base. Rocked up, did a few stomps, ran out of stamina, got stuck on a dead animal, and their turrets chewed through it. I was literally stuck the entire time inside that carcass. Barely even did anything to the base. It could have just been me sucking and being a terrible driver, but who knows. I think it's time to rework the thing and make it a permanent tame. Do it now. I actually do have a lot of love for the Polovia, however it is a creature that I see as a huge missed opportunity. It can deal a decent amount of damage considering its small size, but the main problem is that it cannot be ridden, even though it is a similar size to something like the Sabertooth, and is also quite rare in the wild, so can be a challenge to find a high level. It does have more utility in PvP, as you can either set it to passive and ignore group whistles to have it burrow into the ground to hide items inside its inventory, as it is completely invisible to enemy tribes when burrowed. Its best ability is when burrowed and set to aggressive, as it can pop out of the ground to stun and dismount players from their mounts, which will immobilize them for a good 10 seconds. I admittedly had a lot of fun using Polovias to defend my cave base back in the day when I was messing around on a PvP server with some friends, but I do question its usefulness as a whole. I'm not even sure if many players would even tame it in PvP, and these days there are far better options to hide items like the treasure chests and even a trilobite in the ocean, which a parasaur will struggle to detect. In at number 17, we have the Hesperornis, which could be argued that it does have some usefulness to it. However, it is a nightmare to tame and just not worth it. It is a shoulder pet, so at least it will be able to aid you in carrying more items when on the shoulder. Its usefulness comes in its ability to lay eggs. The regular eggs can be cooked up in a cooking pot for a small amount of oil, which would be nice if they were actually easier to tame. After sent out to kill a number of fish, it has a small chance of laying the very rare golden egg. These can be used to make the best kibble in the game of extraordinary kibble. Plus, after force feeding one to a small non-rideable tame, they receive a temporary 500% experience buff. Humans and larger creatures can also consume them as well for a small 10% buff, which sounds sweet and all that, but I don't know anyone who wants to tame them just for these perks. Plus, the amount of fish you need to kill just to get one could be quite a few and could take a very long time. Sadly, its abilities are useful, but are ruined by the effort required to utilize them. There are just far better shoulder pets out there to make friends with, therefore netting it a spot on the list. In at number 16 is going to be the Megalania, which I actually thought was a somewhat decent-ish tame, but after the huge Uranio TLC, we're starting from the bottom, now we're here. It really needs a TLC itself. Well, so do a lot of creatures in this video. But the Megalania is quite rare, so it is not the easiest thing to tame if looking for a high level. It doesn't deal a lot of damage, and the only thing it has going for it is that it can climb and scale walls and surfaces of any kind. However, in PvP, the devs removed the player's ability to wield weapons while mounted, so that made it quite quite a lot worse. It can give enemy players mega rabies with its bite. However, I keep seeing that the rider is immune to this effect, but this has not been the case when I was testing. The rider would always get mega rabies as well as the attackers, so it kind of seems pointless if the rider can still contract the disease from people it attacks. And as mentioned before, the Uranio TLC has made the Megalania completely obsolete, which is why the Megalania is on this list. Maybe you are tired of Vanilla Ark and wanted to try something new before the Genesis release. Well, if this is you, you can try the new TBS PvE Primal Chaos server, giving players some tasty boosted rates to aid you on your journey through this brutal yet highly popular overhaul mod. The mod itself has been totally rebalanced to offer a unique and thrilling experience, pairing that with the rest of the TBS features, and even cash prizes to win at the end of the season. So if you are interested in joining, you can either join their Discord server, link is in the description of the video, or simply search tbs.com in the server browser with the show player servers option selected to join right away. Now let's get right back to the video. Moving into the deep ocean, we have the butt ugly plesiosaur, hands down the ugliest creature in the entire game. It doesn't get much better with its abilities. It is a fast mount for getting around the ocean and does have access to a platform saddle. It also deals a decent amount of damage with its bite. However, this does have a terrible AoE for such a big creature, so it will struggle to hit anything to the left or right of it. They spawn in the deep ocean, and I just always ask myself, why would I tame a plesiosaur over a Moser which spawns in the same area? And the Moser is just better in every single way, and only requires you to be 9 levels higher to unlock the platform saddle. The only thing it has going for it is its speed, which is not enough to save it. In at number 14 is going to be the Microraptor, hands down one of the most annoying wild creatures in the game. It is only really on the list being outclassed by the majority of other shoulder pets, and it doesn't really have any abilities. As it is, it will give anything inside its inventory a 50% weight reduction when on the player's shoulder, and does have access to pack buffs that go up to +4. But are you ever really going to use them in groups? Probably not. The only unique thing about it is that it can successfully dismount and stun players off of their mounts, but of course this is only used in PvP, and even then is very niche. I could be wrong as I don't play PvP, but maybe it is more useful than I know. I rarely ever tame one, and when I do, it was because I was getting attacked by it, and conveniently had Tranks equipped to my crossbow, so ended up knocking it out instead. The majority of shoulder pets are just better, especially in PvE. Leading us on perfectly to the Troodon. Oh man, if you have ever tamed one of these without pulling your hair out, then I tip my hat off to you. It is the definition of high risk, low reward, with you having to sacrifice your own tamed creatures to be able to tame it. And when you do manage to tame it, it really doesn't do a lot. It does have pretty decent stats considering its small size, pack buffs at night that go up to +4, a pretty strong torpor inflicting bite when attacking humans, but its most useful ability, if you can even use it effectively, is its scan. This can detect nearby enemy players, death caches, tames, wild creatures, and surprisingly traps, which yes, is quite unique. But being as it is not rideable or even a shoulder pet, are you really going to be running around an enemy base with a Troodon on follow just for a cheeky scan? Yeah, probably not. If it was simply a shoulder pet, it could be a very useful creature. Taking the number 12 spot is the poor Diplodocus. It does have a few positives though. It can be tamed either through knockout or passive methods, which is quite unique, and once tamed are ignored by smaller wild carnivores. It is a surprisingly quite fast land mount considering its large size, can harvest berries and small amounts of wood and thatch while having a good weight stat. It has a pretty tanky health pool, so could be utilized as a tank in certain situations, but its most unique ability is having an 11-seat saddle, 1 rider and 10 passengers. But let's be honest, who even has 10 friends that play Ark? Literally no one. It also doesn't deal any damage, so it can't even defend itself from threats. I have never ever tamed one because it's never needed. The saddle is unlocked at level 32 and is extremely expensive, and when compared to other large and even small herbivores, doesn't offer any improvement. I mean, the mammoth and trike both have earlier and cheaper saddle requirements and are both exponentially better in every single way. There is just no reason to ever tame one in PvE at least. And just missing out on the top 10 worst creatures in the game is going to be the Scorpion. On the subject of positives, there isn't really a lot to say. It can at least be saddled and ridden, with players able to wield weapons when mounted, plus can defend itself with average damage and a torpor inflicting sting. But it isn't the best for knocking out creatures anyway. Maybe back in the day if you are an OG and carried one around with an RG to knock out a Quetzal, but we are far past those days. It can be still useful in that respect, but it is just bettered by almost every other creature for combat, traversal, and by any creature with knockout ability. What I will say is that it is surprisingly quite maneuverable and can scale tough terrain relatively well at quite a nippy pace. It is ridiculously easy to tame, so I'll probably have a decent mount for newer players, but my guy looks absolutely ridiculous riding this thing, so it's staying right here. Making our way into the top 10 worst creatures you could tame in the game, kicking things off with the Archaeopteryx, which is the perfect example of a great idea for a creature, but very poorly executed. Its only abilities consist of acting as a portable parachute / shoulder pet that can passively harvest sap when roaming in the redwoods or nearby to Joshua trees. The main issue is that once picking it up, your survivor stands around like this, and that is where it ends. There is no option of alternating between sitting on your shoulder or flight mode. Your player cannot use any weapons while carrying it, so you'll have to throw it somewhere to even be able to defend yourself. And of course, with the release of Lost Island came the Sonoma Crops, which is hands down one of the coolest shoulder pets in the game, which basically gives the survivor wings and the ability to fly. Oh, do I miss them so much. And with no date or info on Lost Island in Survival Ascended, it really is a horrible thought in knowing that we may or may not see this creature come to ASA. I do hope I'm wrong, but anyway, the Archaeopteryx is kinda cute, but it is never worth taming. In at number 9 is the Leopleurodon. I am never a fan of any temporary tame in the game. I just don't really see the point. For starters, it only spawns in the ocean and is an extremely rare spawn. Once you do finally tame one, it only lasts for 30 minutes, but does offer the Mystic Skin Oil buff to any nearby allied players, which will last for 6 hours but I think disappears if the player does die. What this buff is said to do is increase the loot quality of opened loot crates, which is evident when approaching to see it sparkle. But to me it is a complete waste of time and energy, as what it really does is re-roll the contents of the drop. So if playing solo, you could be in for some tasty loot, yet this buff could re-roll that crate to something horrible, which of course you wouldn't know any different, but it's still a possibility. I remember back in the day it did come in somewhat handy if playing with tribe mates, as they could approach the drops before you to see if it was worth the gamble. And being as there are other creatures like the Drakeling, which is 500 times better for giving loot, they need to make it a permanent aquatic tame. It is just not worth ever taming one. In at number 8 is the Compy, which is one of the more common nuisances the player can encounter throughout their journey. Relatively easy to tame at early game, but only prefer raw prime meat. As it is a shoulder pet, it can aid the survivor in carrying many more items while on your shoulder, which of course is useful in itself in the early game. Their eggs can be used to make simple kibble, however that is where it ends. It doesn't even have any unique abilities or attacks, which make it one of the worst shoulder pet options. The only thing it has going for it is a pretty high pack buff rating that goes up to +8, but I mean, who is ever going to use a Compy army like that? They deal such little damage even with the pack buffs. But fair play to them, they were able to take out this Alpha Raptor and Carno, but did suffer a few casualties. In at number 7, I went with the Onyx, which I will admit I do like the idea of it. It's just sadly not really useful for anything, mainly due to it not being rideable, with no form of armor protection. It does however have pretty good stats for its size, and deals quite a good amount of damage with its bite attack, which can also inflict mega rabies to players, plus can absolutely shred a player's armor very quickly. So maybe they can be used to defend the inside of a base in PvP. Maybe there is someone crazy enough out there that wants to breed an Onyx army, as it can at least be bred. Personally, I think the devs should just make the Onyx a shoulder pet, as it would instantly go from being pretty useless to being a very cool tame to own. Next up is going to be the Lymantria, which sadly falls into the same boat as the Diplodocus, but is kinda worse. It's not even that easy to tame, as they have more torpor than health, so you can sometimes kill it when attempting to knock it out with early game weaponry. Plus it is a herbivore, so better foods are limited if thinking about obtaining one for the early game. And once tamed it doesn't get much better, it can't even defend itself, but instead can fart on its enemies. This can be used to slow targets, drain stamina and water if used on players, but I can't see this being used beneficially in PvE or PvP. It basically serves as a Pteranodon equivalent to Scorched Earth, but sadly its only real use is to take you to the skies, and even then it will struggle to carry the rider with a full set of gear. I will always just skip them and go straight for an RG. It is mostly used as a disposable tame that no one cares about for stealing wyvern eggs at the early game. We move from the worst flyer to the worst land mount with the poor Gallimimus. Sadly, it doesn't have a lot going for it in terms of positives. It does offer a freak-seater saddle, 1 rider and 2 passengers, can harvest berries but is pretty abysmal at that. Its eggs are used in making simple kibble, and it is stated to be one of the fastest land mounts in the game. However, its stats are so bad that even a tiny bit of full damage can outright kill it in a one-er. Its bite attack barely deals any damage at all, and you would have thought a creature this size that can carry 3 people would at least have a decent weight stat. stat. But nah, it doesn't even have that. It is also extremely annoying to tame. I'm pretty certain back in the day you used to be able to bowler them before they changed it, so you can't even do that anymore, and trapping them is a lot of effort but is needed because as soon as you trank it, it shoots off like a rocket, never to be seen again. Plus you can only really use a long neck rifle and darts, as using anything else poses a high risk of killing it due to its terrible health stat. It's just so bad in every way, man. Our next entry is a little bit of a controversial pick, as the male Megaloceros is a great mount for many reasons, especially in PvP as its attack can inflict a bleed effect to players. The female Megaloceros on the other hand is pretty useless. The only thing it can do is run, that is it. Jog on.
Jog on.
Which it can do at a 25% extra speed of the male. It can't attack due to having no antlers, which also means it can't harvest anything whatsoever. Its only use is breeding one with your male for a stronger male baby. The manta might possibly be the worst aquatic creature you can tame and ride in the game, as I almost have nothing positive to say about it. The only thing it has going for it is its fast swimming speed and ability to jump out of the water. It is extremely tedious to tame as it is highly aggressive, yet you have to feed it passively with angler gel straight up its bum at that. And angler gel isn't exactly easy to obtain at the early game. It deals decent damage but has pretty bad stats across the board. Plus we do also have to point out that the saddle is unlocked at level 38, whereas the Ichthyosaurus saddle is only at level 13, which is by far a better aquatic early game mount in pretty much every single way. It is just so bad that this is the first time I decided to tame one, which was for this video. Only just missing out on the top spot is going to be the Electrophorus, sharing a seat in the same boat as the manta as the worst tameable aquatic creature in the game, which can't even be ridden. Once again, it is another annoying, highly aggressive creature that is passively tamed. I don't know, maybe it could be used to defend aquatic bases, as it can shock, slow, and deal a little bit of torpor over time, plus reduce the melee of attackers whenever it bites the target. It does also have pack buffs that go up to +6, but is it really useful for anything? Please do let me know in the comments if anyone has used them in PvP and has actually found them useful. I would love to hear about it. Well, in the top spot, we have none other than the Titanoboa. Yes, it can be tamed. You may not have even known that because no one wants to tame it. And it is another annoying one at that. Tamed the same way as the Basilisk, where you need to drop fertilized eggs for it to gobble up. In terms of positives, there is really nothing to say. The Titanoboa eggs can make superior kibble. It could deal torpor with its attacks, which is a decent amount, but good luck with getting any form of job done, as its health is pretty bad. Paired with no saddle, no armor protection, and not being able to ride it, encounters are only going to end one way, and that is badly. This slivery sucker sucks. And that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please consider liking, sharing around, and subscribing for more. And please do chuck down a comment, let me know if you agree or disagree, or if there's any I missed. I would love to hear your thoughts. I hope you're all having a great week, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Goodbye.
Hey kids, I just woke up from a nap I took in January of 2020 and boy are my arms tired. Let's see what I missed. Queen's dead, war in Ukraine, the Taliban's back. What is... Holy shit. They made a movie called Scoob. Unprecedented global pandemic, Space Jam 2, some popular guy named Brandon. Yep, that just about covers it. Anyway, we all know about the scientific names of animals, but did you ever wonder what they actually mean? To find out, we must look to taxonomists. They're the guys responsible for the systems of nomenclature we use to classify organisms, and boy are they convoluted. First you got the big 8, domain, kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. I've seen plenty of mnemonic devices for this, but since the D just showed up in the 90s and is still disputed by some scientists, he's usually not included. So allow me to suggest a few. Dizzy kids puke cereal on fairground staff. Dumb kittens pushing cups over feeds growing spite. Donkey Kong's fucking serendipitously. The way this whole thing works differs slightly depending on which kingdom you pick. So today we'll be sticking to the animal one, cause that one's the coolest and I'm in it. So what constitutes each taxon is pretty arbitrary. They basically just serve to act as another set of branches in the tree that taxonomists build. The one exception is species, which is generally defined as any group of animals that can have babies with each other that aren't sterile freaks. Mule, liger, zedonk, skunk ape, they can live fulfilling lives, but they're all shooting blanks, so they don't count. On the other hand, in our innumerable trespasses against God, we can make things like chidandanes, which actually work, so dogs are dogs are dogs. Besides species though, it's the Wild West in here. Plenty of times, 8 tiers isn't even enough for scientists, so they just stick new sublevels in between. Legions, cohorts, tribes, series, divisions, and if you want to keep going, you can throw all kinds of prefixes on any of these for even more layers. There's even subspecies, which the more pedantic of you may think to yourselves that creating names for subspecies at all kind of undermines the single somewhat agreed upon definition in the whole tree. To that, my friends taxonomists say, But while that's pretty complex, the actual names themselves are pretty easy to wrap your head around. Though taxonomists may hide behind their fancy Greek and Latin, the Vulgate is no substitute for wit. Now, I've scraped through the scientific names of a load of species, and most of them can be split into a few categories. The simplest ones are the animals that already have names in Greek or Latin. It's a lion, I'm calling it Leo. Done. Tiger, it's a tigris. Cat, it's a catus. Easy. Multi-word names
There are over 200 creatures in Ark, some of which are rarely ever tamed, therefore left forgotten. In this video I wanted to showcase 10 more forgotten creatures that most players will typically skip in favour of other creatures. Who knows, maybe you'll discover some new creatures with some useful abilities you didn't know about. So without further ado, let's go straight into it. Kicking off our list we have the Sarco, which no doubt is underrated, overshadowed and outclassed by its larger sibling the Deinosuchus, and most likely the Baryonyx. But what is great about the Sarco is that it is much easier to tame, is far more common than most, and is more accessible in obtaining a high level, which can be especially useful in the earlier stages of the game. Found commonly spawning in the swamp regions on most maps or some shallow waters and rivers. Tamed via typical knockout methods and preferring regular kibble, but can be tamed with any type of meat. And once tamed can be saddled up at level 35. The Sarco is a very versatile mount, having a relatively quick running speed on land, but is much faster and agile in the water. Much faster than both the Deinosuchus and the Baryonyx. Plus it does not possess an oxygen stat and will not rise up to the surface when dismounted underwater, so it is the perfect mount to introduce you to ocean exploration. Added to that, when stationary in the water it can pretty much instantly regain any lost stamina. The rider can also wield their weapons when mounted, which makes taming any and aquatic creatures a whole lot easier. It also has a few unique passives going its way, where it will scare away piranhas and is fully ignored by leeches. Well, unless you give them a cheeky love tap first, of course. As it is a crocodile, it comes as no surprise that it is more than capable of defending itself with a directional bite that deals decent damage. Also having access to an alternate death roll attack which can grab small to medium creatures and take them for a good ride, and its tertiary attack that consists of a leap that deals slightly more damage than the regular bite but uses the most amount of stamina. It can also use its regular bite at double the speed when submerged in water, which is lovely. All of these reasons are what makes the Sarco worth your time. Up next is another creature I actually do have a lot of love for. I just wish they were a little prettier. It is the terror bird. Terror in looks and terror by nature. This aggressive bird could potentially be a great addition to your army. Most commonly found in the redwoods on most maps or in the odd jungles here and there. Pretty much everywhere on scorched earth minus the mountains or sand dunes, and dotted around the sanctuary on extinction. It can be bowled for an easy knockout but does have quite a fast torpor drain, preferring regular kibble for the best taming effectiveness or any type of meat, where it can then be saddled up at level 33. The terror bird is a fast and agile mount, most likely sharing similar stats to the raptor, but does have slightly better base damage. The player can of course wield their weapons when mounted for the extra damage output, but what is great about the terror bird is its ability to use those cute flappy little wings, if you could even call them wings, where it can glide for pretty good distances. Plus it's a whole lot of fun. Sadly it does still take the full brunt of fall damage when flapping about, which kind of sucks, so you do have to be careful with it. But if you can get a strong breeding line going, then the terror bird makes for a great early game cave-in mount. And apparently in PvP they are great for charging at turrets, but I know nothing about that. Admittedly not a lot of utility going its way, but I can't lie, I do have a little bit of a soft spot for the terror bird. We move from highly aggressive angry bird to the peaceful iguanodon, which you'll find spawning around the jungles on most maps, scorched earth oasis areas, and below the red and green obelisk, aberrations green and blue zone, and the sunken forest and sanctuary on extinction. A simple knockout tame that can be bowled and prefers simple kibble for the best taming effectiveness, or can be fed any type of berries, and once tamed can be saddled up at level 30, where you will have yourself a great starter tame that can get you from A to B relatively quickly, due to having the ability to change its stance from biped to quadruped. When in biped stance it can jump to surprisingly hefty heights, as well as having access to its melee attack, which isn't the best of damage output, but very good for early game considering how easy they are to tame. This attack is good for gathering berries, and when on aberration is one of the better creatures of harvesting mushrooms, biotoxin and all that good stuff. But the player can also wield their weapons when mounted if the going gets tough. When in quadruped stance it can sprint faster and does not consume any stamina whatsoever, making it a great traversal mount. And finally, it does have the unique ability of converting berries and crops to seeds inside its inventory, which can be extremely useful in building your greenhouse palace. Stacks of seeds are of course an easy to obtain and very cheap food source for your gachas to buff their loot quality. That is if you can't be bothered to make better structures or have any plant species Y traps at hand. Diving down into the ocean, we have the only aquatic creature I believe deserves a spot on this list, which is the Megalodon. Maybe one of the more annoying threats to encounter when entering the ocean, as you will probably get swarmed by them if not well prepared. So they are definitely not forgotten when it comes to existing in the wild, that's for sure. On the plus point, this means there is a lot of them, so it is very easy to find a high level breeding pair when looking to tame. They spawn very commonly in the ocean and mostly close to the surface on most maps. The Sarco is a great mount for finding one to tame as well, which is what I'm using here, as they are tamed via typical knockout methods and prefers superior kibble for the best taming effectiveness, or can be fed any type of meat, and once tamed can be saddled up at level 47. And although the Megalodon is overshadowed by the Moser, the Tuso and even the Surfactinus, they do have strong stats across the board. However, their strength does not come as a lone hunter, but with its strong pack buffs and the ability to bleed out targets quickly. It has one of the strongest pack buff ratings in the game, which will go up to +8 in a group of 9 or more Megalodons, where they will receive roughly 28% melee damage and 8.5% damage resistance per extra pack member. On top of that, having one of the strongest bleed attacks in the game, which will drain 5% of the target's total health over 5 seconds, which allows them to take down tanky and dangerous threats with ease. The Megalodon was my main contributing factor in beating the massively overspawned underwater artifact cave from the island map. The amount of damage they can output quickly is extraordinary, and is only really beaten by the Surfactinus. There's just nothing better than a bit of meg on meg action in the artifact.
Just to say your favorite round. The Titans fruit or not round on the Tiger. Well, that's pretty good. I like the armor-piercing, high-explosive, anti-tank, capitalistic, cap squash, and variable time fuse, composite object, fin stabilized, discarding, sabo, tracer, multi-purpose, extended range fragmentation rounds. Yeah, we normally don't let him out of the cage, but every time I do that bit, somebody always is like, oh, he wrote that down. Like, when LeBron hits a three-pointer, you say, oh, he practiced that. Just say your favorite round. The Titans fruit or not round on the Tiger. Well, that's pretty good. I like the armor-piercing, high-explosive, anti-tank, capitalistic, cap squash, and variable time fuse, composite object, fin stabilized, discarding, sabo, tracer, multi-purpose, extended range fragmentation rounds. Yeah, we normally don't let him out of the cage, but every time I do that bit, somebody always is like, oh, he wrote that down. Like, when LeBron hits a three-pointer, you say, oh, he practiced that. Just say your favorite round. The Titans fruit or not round on the Tiger. Well, that's pretty good. I like the armor-piercing, high-explosive, anti-tank, capitalistic, cap squash, and variable time fuse, composite object, fin stabilized, discarding, sabo, tracer, multi-purpose, extended range fragmentation rounds. Yeah, we normally don't let him out of the cage, but every time I do that bit, somebody always is like, oh, he wrote that down. Like, when LeBron hits a three-pointer, you say, oh, he practiced that. Just say your favorite round. The Titans fruit or not round on the Tiger. Well, that's pretty good. I like the armor-piercing,
Fat cage.
high-explosive,
And finally, they can also be equipped with a tech saddle later down the line that will no doubt give it an edge over its rivals. Up next is a perfect example of a creature that gets skipped over, which in this case is in favor of the Argentavis or the Rhynianatha. Oh yes, it is none other than the Quetzal. And I am fully guilty of doing this too because both do outclass the Quetzal when used in PvE. However, the Quetzal deserves a spot on this list because if you didn't know already, it will be receiving a massive TLC update, which will give it a brand new model and fingers crossed completely change up its abilities and maybe even the way you tame them. Stated to receive this in 2026, but we are a quarter of the way through the year already, and previous winners have not even received one yet. So I'm not even...
Did the Quetzal get a rework in Ark Survival Evolved?
sure if this will actually happen this year. I really hope it does, but with all that being said, now is the time to get in there like swimwear nice and early and hunt down some high levels to tame before this update comes. You'll find them rarely spawning high up in the skies on most maps, which is probably another reason why no one wants to tame one over the Argentavis, which is exponentially easier to tame and much more useful. It is tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring exceptional kibble for the best taming effectiveness, or will eat any type of meat. And once tamed has access to a regular saddle unlocked at level 76 and a platform saddle unlocked at level 97. It has high health, stamina and weight stats and was the go-to for hauling heavy loads before the Argentavis received its massive TLC update way back when. It can use a bite attack while flying or when grounded, which does deal quite a decent amount of knockback, but the damage is measly considering its size. Something I hope they change with this TLC because it is rumored to be one of the deadliest and fastest flyers that existed, and of course its portrayal in Ark is far from that. Anyway, its best selling points for survivors is that it can pick up creatures up to the size of a mammoth in its talons, and of course having the ability to build a mobile base on its back when equipping the platform saddle. Damn, I remember how overpowered this thing used to be back when you could place auto turrets and plant species X on its back. Oh, the OG Ark Legacy days, man. What a time to be alive. The Quetzal is hands down going to be the most exciting creature TLC we get, which is why you need to prepare and tame some early on ready for this update. Beesh. Up next is the Stego's short-tempered cousin, the Kentrosaurus, which you'll most likely find spawning around the mountainous regions on most maps, or around the desert dome on Extinction, tamed via typical knockout methods preferring regular kibble but can be tamed with any type of berries if you are cray-cray, and once tamed unfortunately cannot be ridden, which I guess makes sense as you'll have something very sharp poking you up your backside, but that doesn't mean to say I'm not disappointed. I would absolutely take that like a champ if it meant I could ride one of these beasts. Although it doesn't deal a lot of damage with its bite, the Kentro does make for a great guard dog, with a relatively high health pool for its size and the ability to impale either humans or small to medium creatures on its giant spikes, which does inflict a bleed effect draining 10% of the target's health over 15 seconds, and negates any healing effects from any consumables. They also receive pack buffs that go up to +4 in a group of 5 or more, giving them slightly more damage output per extra pack member. But the best feature of the Kentro is its ability to reflect a portion of damage back to its attackers. Any creatures that attack it is going to feel the pain. This means they can actually make a Giga Rage after just a few bites and deal massive damage back to them. They can be an absolute nightmare to deal with when pumped in health, considering they don't even have access to a saddle. This means that if you can get a good breeding line going, they can even defeat some of the deadliest bosses in Ark, albeit a highly risky strategy. In this case, none of my group whistle commands were working at all for some reason, which does actually happen quite a lot for me on unofficial servers, so I couldn't even command any of my tames, but we still managed to beat the Megapithecus on alpha difficulty, while only losing 5 or so Kentros. So I'm taking that as a win. Oh, I do love me a good Kentro though. Absolutely beautiful creatures. So this is most definitely a controversial pick, as the Basilisk is a highly versatile and strong battle mount. However, I do feel like it is left forgotten, where players typically favour other creatures over it for many different reasons. So it's time to show this giant serpent some love, where it can be rarely found in Aberration's green, blue and red zones, and the same goes for Valguero's Aberration region, tamed via a unique method of dropping fertilised rock drake eggs on the ground for it to gobble up. This can be subbed out for either fertilised wyvern eggs or magmasaur eggs if transferring, and after Genesis Part 1 releases. And once tamed and saddled up at a high level of 85, you will have yourself a strong battle mount like no other, with a torpor inflicting bite that deals high damage and will apply 3 times torpor of damage dealt over 10 seconds. This does however not stack, so be sure to wait 10 seconds before chomping again. This can be very useful for knocking out most medium to large creatures. Its range poison spit attack works similar to that of a poison wyvern, dealing high damage that scales with its melee damage stat, which of course does ignore armor too. Therefore it's pretty effective for clearing out groups of nameless, as it will bypass their natural armor protection even without a charge light source to weaken them. It boasts very high health and weight stats, with a 75% weight reduction for stone inside its inventory, making it great for cargo hauling after a long day's work, while having a pretty decent base movement speed allows it to quickly cover long distances with ease. Not to mention it does not possess an oxygen stat and has the ability to bury, allowing it to potentially ambush any unfortunate threats that wander too close. Or if you just need to get from A to B quickly, as it can be ridden underground, the rider will lose oxygen over time when doing this, so keep that in mind. The only real downside to the Basilisk is that it feels like driving a double-decker bus, and does have one of the largest turning radiuses in the game, but it can at least move backwards to aid it in battle. And if you did not already know, Basilisk can now be bred in Ark Survival Ascended, and I don't think there is anything scarier than a beefed up mutated Basilisk. Well, my wife would be proud of me right now for adding the patchy rhino to the list. Admittedly, I don't tame them all that much, but she absolutely loves them. But yes, it's no secret that the majority of players will favour the trike and many other herbivores over it, but it is still a great beginner tame to own if you can stumble upon a decent level. Mostly found within the jungles on most maps, or the east side of the sanctuary on Extinction. A simple knockout tame that annoyingly prefers bug repellent over anything else, but can still be fed with any type of berries. Be sure sure to watch those torpor levels closely as it does drop pretty quickly, and once tamed can be saddled up at level 27. Sharing very similar stats and qualities as the Triceratops, the Patchy Rhino is relatively tanky and does take 85% less damage from projectiles when shot in the head, and does have a headbutt attack to defend itself, which deals slightly less damage than the Trike, but also deals a decent amount of knockback to targets. It does, however, attack a little quicker, and can use the attack while sprinting, and can also gather berries very effectively. Of course, the rider can also wield their weapons when mounted. It does also have two very unique abilities, one being its Calm Pheromones, which basically gives it a ghillie armor-like effect, where any creatures up to the size of roughly an Allosaurus will completely ignore it. This effect will last for 20 seconds and has a 30-second cooldown. Its second ability is the Rage Pheromones, which is the opposite of Calm, and works the same as the Rare Flower debuff, where creatures up to the size of an aloe will become aggressive toward it, which means the ability can be useful in taming certain passive flea creatures if you are all out of rare flowers. And lastly, the saddle does offer a passenger seat, which is another reason why my wife loves it so much, as she'll ask me to accompany her while she's out gathering berries, because she didn't feel safe going out alone. Well, have no fear, Bay is here to save the day. I will admit though, they are rather cute, aren't they? We now move on to quite possibly one of my favourite creatures in the game, the dire bear. And this one might be another little bit of a controversial pick due to how versatile it can be, but I still see barely anyone using them. Maybe it's just me, but I feel like it deserves a spot on this list. Found commonly spawning in the redwoods on most maps, or bear caves on a few other maps like Ragnarok or the Center. Tamed via knockout, ideally with a long neck rifle and tranks, as it can be a bit of a challenge to knock out without killing it if using a crossbow. Preferring either superior kibble or giant bee honey, but will pretty much eat anything as they are omnivores. And once tamed can be saddled up at level 45, where you will have yourself a fast, agile and strong battle mount that when reaching its full sprinting potential is one of the fastest land mounts in the game, with decent health, stamina and weight stats and a high damage melee attack, a bite that deals high base damage, and a claw attack which rivals the damage of even a T-Rex, so it is not one to be messed with and is more than capable of defending itself or you from dangerous threats. The rider can also wield their weapons when mounted for the extra damage output, and can do almost anything and everything, capable of harvesting meat, hide etc from carcasses, and berries, fiber, silk etc from bushes. It can also use its claw attack to harvest honey from wild beehives for 15 honey a time, which is 3 times the amount a survivor can harvest it for, and doing so without any aggro from the bees inside. This does have a 15-minute cooldown where you can come back later and do it all over again. Beautiful. When playing Aberration, the dire bear is ridiculously useful for harvesting bucket loads of organic polymer from the bushes on the edge of the blue zone and found in the red zone. You will have so much of it you won't know what to do with it. If standing next to a dire bear, it will offer the player a small 35 hyper and hypothermic protection. All of these reasons are what makes the dire bear one of my favourite creatures in the entire game. It may not be forgotten, but it has and always will be highly underrated. Plus they're super cute. Oh, look at that cute little face. I just want to give him a big hug. And to close things out, we have the Aranio. Not because it is good, as if I'm being honest, it is probably one of the most useless creatures in the game, at least for now. It will, however, be the first creature that receives a TLC update sometime this year. No proper news on this yet, but they did just announce yesterday that it will be coming soon, and does have its own new dossier, so it's all exciting stuff. Stating that the Aranio will now be far more dangerous than this first iteration. Will no longer skitter at ground level and will now claim the high ground like Obi-Wan, using web lines to traverse terrain and drop down on unsuspecting victims with precision, which sounds like we are finally going to get a proper spider in the game. It's about time. In the dossier, it goes on to say that it can drop down from above, wrap up a target creature in webbing before subduing them with a venomous bite. And if the taming attempt fails, hardened silk can be harvested from the target, which will most likely be a substitute of the silk we already have in the game. So yeah, sounds like a very nice change, so you'll most definitely be wanting to tame some up now if possible. Found most commonly spawning in caves, tamed passively where you will need to spray yourself down with that fresh fragrance of bug repellent, approach from behind, ideally by crouching or going prone, and shove spoiled meat straight up its bum from your final hotbar slot. Rinse and repeat until tamed, where it is saddled up at level 40. It does have a torpor inflicted bite that deals 3 times torpor of damage dealt and does stack up to 2 times, but it is one of the weakest torpor inflicting creatures, so it will be a right mission animation to knock things out. It can also use its ranged spider web attack that slows targets for 10 seconds. It can heal up quickly when force-fed sport meat, but yeah, that is pretty much all it has going for it. I will admit I have only tamed 2 of these things in my life, and both occasions were for content purposes, so that kinda says it all really. They can be bred though, so maybe now is the time to get out there and work on some good stats before this update comes, where we will hopefully see the Aranio become more of a staple tame in Ark. And that is going to be the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed it or found it helpful, and if you did, please don't forget to like, comment, share around, and subscribe for more. Plus, if you did enjoy it, please do go check out my 10 forgotten creatures you should tame in Ark, which is like the first installment of this one. Hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care. Goodbye. There are over 200 creatures in Ark, some of which are rarely ever used, therefore left forgotten. In this video I wanted to showcase my top 10 forgotten creatures in Ark, showing some love to the creatures that most players will typically skip in favor of other creatures. Who knows, maybe you'll discover some cool creatures with some awesome abilities you didn't know about. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. Kicking off our list is a dino in desperate need of a TLC update. The Patchy, a dino I almost never bother to tame. However, it does have a small amount of utility going its way if you do manage to tame one in the early game, as they are found spawning around the beaches and jungles on most maps, and also in the sunken forest on Extinction. Can be bowlered and tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring simple kibble for the best taming effectiveness, but you'll most likely tame it on any berries you can find. Saddled up at level 14, which is crafted from the player's inventory. Even though it is a herbivore, it cannot gather berries for itself, which really winds me up. It can, however, gather small amounts of wood and thatch. Other than that, its utility comes with its headstrong attacks, a primary headbutt which deals a bit of damage, while also dealing 1.7 times torpor. However, it will likely kill most creatures with this attack. Its secondary attack consists of a charge which, when aimed at targets, deals a whopping 3.5 times torpor of damage dealt, which is where it becomes very useful, as it can aid you in knocking out a wide variety of creatures. Even with damage numbers turned on, the Patchy's charge damage doesn't show up, but I can assure you it deals quite a lot of torpor and a lot less health damage to targets as opposed to the regular primary attack. I wholeheartedly believe the Patchy's charge to be a very underrated ability, considering it is a starter creature. It's just a shame that this is all the Patchy has going for it. I've been crossing my fingers for many years that the devs show this guy some love and give him a cheeky TLC in the future. Up next is the Diplodocus. It is a creature I sometimes like to use at the early game, and I wanted to show it some love here in this video. Found commonly spawning around the swamps on most maps, and in the blue zone on Aberration. It can be bowlered and is tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring simple kibble or any type of meat. Once tamed, it does not require a saddle to ride, however it does need to be in water for the player to be able to hop onto its back. The Diplodocus is a very fast swimmer, but it is very frail in terms of stats, so it is not used to fight anything other than trilobites, which it will deal a massive 10 times damage to. Trilobites are a great source of chitin and rarely silica and black pearls, making them great for gathering small amounts of these rare resources. It has the unique ability of being a portable scuba tank, where it can share its oxygen stat with its rider. Scuba gear is unlocked at level 80, which is relatively high, especially if you're new to the game and are enjoying it at a steady pace, which makes the Diplodocus very useful for newer players. It will give you quick and full access to those ocean resources like silica pearls and oil, etc, etc. Having a fast enough swimming speed to outrun any threat the ocean has to offer. It can heal very quickly when force-fed meat when submerged, which is nice due to them not having saddle armor and a pretty low health stat. Plus I guess they're kinda cute, right? We then have the pub-crawling, beer-loving Calicotherium, a creature I have a lot of love for. However, it seems that no one ever tames them. You'll find them more commonly spawning in the snow biome, and rarely the jungles on most maps. Tamed passively, where it is recommended to don a full set of ghillie armor, walk behind it with beer jars in your final hotbar slot, and shove the jars of beer up its bum. Sounds simple, however it's quite the mission to brew some beers in this game, as it takes a lot of time and effort, which is probably the main reason why people shy away away from taming them. However, it can be saddled up at a low level of 42, boasting relatively decent stats across the board while dealing decent base damage with its primary attack, which comes in the form of a giant slap. It also has a bite attack which can be performed by pressing the crouch button and deals slightly less damage than the primary attack. Both of these attacks, especially the bite attack which can be used while running, are great for harvesting berries and thatch, and small amounts of wood, but it comes into its own with its ranged attacks, launching rocks at its enemies and deals some hefty damage, which does also scale with its melee damage stat by the way. This does deal some hefty damage to wooden structures, so it can be useful as an early game PvP sieging mount. It does also have a sit option that can be accessed via its radial menu, which will decrease its food consumption by 50% while also healing it for 2% per second up to 50%. It can also be set into turret mode via the radial menu, making it a great base defender too. And although it is outshone by many other creatures, taming up a high level male and female with strong base stats and breeding them up can be quite useful in defeating bosses, as they do also have access to the healing effect of sweet veggie cakes. I am a firm believer that the Calicotherium has and always will remain to be a super underrated creature. In at number 7 we have the Ichthyornis, quite possibly the most annoying creature in the game when encountering it in the wild. However, it is a very useful companion if you manage to tame one. Found commonly spawning around the beaches on most maps or the sanctuary on extinction. It can be bowled and easily knocked out, preferring regular kibble for the best taming effectiveness, or any type of fish meat if you don't have access to that. Once tamed, it can be picked up by the player, acting as a shoulder pet. Because of this, it has the bonus of giving 50% weight reduction to anything inside its inventory when perched on your shoulder, allowing you to carry many more items when out exploring. It has a regular dive attack which can pick up small creatures in its beak and deals a lot of damage to fish. If attacking a human, this attack has a chance to disarm the player. This can also be catered to your liking when accessing the radial menu. No hunt where the Ichthyornis won't grab small creatures and will just attack normally. The hunt option where the Ichthyornis will grab small creatures in its mouth and consume them after death. And finally, its hunt and retrieve ability, where it will grab and kill small creatures and bring the carcass back to the player. A shiny gold aura will be visible around the carcass, where you can harvest raw prime fish meat or raw prime meat from it. I have heard that dragging a fish affected by the buff can be more efficient in taming the otter or the Hesperornis. I did test this in Ark Survival Ascended, but at 1.3 salmon with and without the buff both gave the same taming effectiveness per feed when taming the otter. But maybe this could work in Ark Survival Evolved. Either way, the Ichthyornis is a great companion to own, especially during the early game. Up next we have the Gigantopithecus, more commonly found in the Redwoods biome on most maps and the Blue Zone on Aberration. A passive tame which you can think about obtaining once you reach level 30. Tamed passively where you need to sneak up behind it, preferring regular kibble from your final hotbar slot. Once tamed they do not have a saddle, however you can equip them with helmets and the higher the quality the better the armor protection. They do have pretty decent stats and can dish out a good amount of damage with their primary attack. They make for quite a handy traveling mount with great speed, agility and ability to jump. I mean, who doesn't want to be launched into the air like a catapult, right? They are exceptional resource gatherers too, great for harvesting berries and fiber in particular, and other collectibles with the alternate attack, which does include organic polymer from the Aberration bushes, which can now be found in many caves throughout Ragnarok. And what a lot of people don't know is that they can actually pick up small creatures and shoulder pets just like a human can, which is really cool. Having an extra companion on your Gigantopithecus's shoulder almost makes you feel invincible when caving, as you're basically carrying around a small army with you. That is until you come to the realization that your Gigantopithecus's shoulder pet takes the full brunt of any damage, unlike a shoulder pet perched on a human, which is of course fully immune to wild creature attacks. But remember, you do also have the option to also equip high quality helmets to some of the shoulder pets in the game, the Mesopithecus being a great example. Going full monkey might actually be the key to success in life. In at number 5 is the dire wolf, arguably a very popular creature, but I believe most players, including myself, forget how strong the direwolf actually is, and how beneficial it can be to tame one. I feel like it has a niche fan base, but isn't utilized enough by most players. Found commonly spawning in packs in the snow biomes on most maps, and found pretty much everywhere in the center of the Scorched Earth map, minus the dunes and the mountains. It can be bowled and tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring superior kibble for the best taming effectiveness. But of course, you'll probably tame your first few on raw prime meat or any type of meat. Once tamed, it does not have access to saddle armor, which is its only only real downfall. However, due to not having a saddle requirement, you can tame up an army of these beasts in the early game, which is a huge plus point. It has pretty average stats as a lone dire wolf, but does deal some pretty hefty damage with its bite, where it is able to effectively harvest creature carcasses, and is highly efficient in gathering a wide variety of resources. It comes into its own with its pack buffs, which will go up to +4 in a group of 5 or more dire wolves, where they receive 5% extra melee damage and 3.5% damage resistance per extra pack member. The highest level of the pack will always be designated the Alpha, where it can perform a howl to buff the pack leader's damage by 25% and damage resistance by 12.5%. It does have some unique abilities going its way too, where it can sniff out nearby explorer notes to gain all those tasty XP benefits, and a passive known as Wound Sniffer, where it allows the rider to see the approximate health of targets visible as a white cross. When below 50%, shows as yellow and progressively turns to red, while also able to detect a corpse with a broken white cross. Along with its strong attacks and pack buffs, the direwolf is agile and is an all-round great traversal land mount. Great for caving, the rider can wield their weapons when mounted, and although they are glass cannons, if you have a strong enough breeding line, they can be a great asset in the boss arena. There's not many that can drain a large health ball quicker than a deadly pack of direwolves can. The strategy heavily depends on your tanky creatures pulling the full aggro of the boss, while the wolves attack it from behind. Not the safest strategy by any means, but it can be done. In at number 4, we have the Carno, a dino I actually have a lot of love for, even if they are butt ugly. And the best thing about the Carno is that it spawns almost anywhere and everywhere, but rarely seen on the beaches. The best locations to search will always be Carnival Islands or the snow biome, as they spawn alongside the Uteranus in groups of 3 or 4. Also commonly in Aberration's green and red zone. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring regular kibble for the best taming efficiency. Saddled up at level 46, you will have yourself a pretty nice battle mount, able to easily kill most threats that you face during your early to mid game struggles, while having pretty decent stats across the board, a great sprint speed, and is more agile than most creatures around its size. The Carno also makes for a great cave-in mount, as it will fit into most cave entrances without the need of cryopods. The Carno is also equipped with an alternate headbutt attack, which does deal the same amount of damage as the primary bite attack. However, this attack does inflict a nasty bleed effect, which will drain 5% of the target's health over 10 seconds, albeit a weaker bleed than the much more popular Phylocolio. However, the Carno is much more accessible and easier to tame for newer players. The Carno isn't flashy with its abilities, but it knows how to get the job done for the most part. Up next is none other than the woolly rhino, which evidently has great use in PvP. However, the rhino is left forgotten when playing PvE. Poor rhino. Found commonly spawning in the snow biomes on most maps. Tamed via typical knockout methods, preferring superior kibble for the best taming efficiency. It can be saddled up at level 53. Once tamed, you will have yourself one of Ark's greatest hits. The rhino is a powerful herbivore that poses a threat to anything and everything that stands in its way. It has pretty decent stats across the board, dealing decent damage with its horny primary attack, while also making for a great berry and thatch harvester. It is a sluggish creature at first glance. However, when holding down the sprint button, it will gain speed and momentum, comparable to some of the faster land mounts in the game, while having one devastating attack hidden up its sleeve. A momentum bar is visible on the right of the screen. Increasing in speed will raise the momentum bar, and when at max speed, hit the attack key, and the rhino will ram a target with everything it has, dealing massive damage. I believe it's roughly around 800% extra damage when at full charge. It is a lot. That is all I know. As it is a herbivore, it gains access to the healing effect of sweet veggie cakes. All of these capabilities combined makes it a viable pick in riding one into the boss fight. And it is definitely more viable with the more players you have, but damn, the woolly rhino is a lot of fun. So if you haven't tamed one yet, what are you playing at? Taking the number 2 spot is a highly controversial one. It is the Procoptodon, an extremely popular pick when playing the Scorched Earth map, but I feel like it is left forgotten when playing almost every other map, which could be due to them being a very rare spawn. They are, however, found commonly on any map with a Scorched Earth biome. They are skittish and very quick, so it's best to trap one to tame one via typical knockout methods, preferring rare mushrooms for the best taming effectiveness, but they will eat berries once tamed, where it can be saddled up at the low level of level 23. free. It is more of a lover than a fighter, having a primary bite attack that deals average damage at best, but does have a secondary kick attack which deals amazing knockback. Both are great for gathering berries, especially the kick, where it can also use this attack to move when over encumbered, so it can come in very handy in certain situations. It does also have a passenger seat in the form of its pouch, where both the rider and passenger can wield their weapons when mounted, while also keeping the passenger warm and snug. The Procoptodon also has a jump which can be held down to charge up and aimed for covering large distances extremely quickly, which can even be used during a sandstorm on scorched earth, if for some reason you get caught with your pants down. This jump can be cancelled mid-air when pressing the jump button again, which is a small feature I've come to really appreciate over the years. The Procoptodon comes into its own as a nanny, and will always have your back when it comes to looking after your little ones. It can pick up small creatures and babies in its pouch, and when a baby is inside a female mate boosted Procoptodon's pouch, it will reduce the baby's food consumption by 50%, and will also double the imprint bonus that the baby receives from each care. With its speed and agility, makes it an amazing taming aid for solo players. The Procoptodon has and always will be one of my favourite creatures to own in the game. There's just no better feeling than hippity hopping, never stopping to get you from A to B. And to close out the video is once again another controversial pick. It is the Megalosaurus. Controversial because it is probably the most popular battle mount when playing the Aberration map. However, it is left forgotten on almost every other map, as it is a nocturnal predator, making it substantially weaker than most during the daytime. Therefore gets left behind by most players when looking for a battle mount to tame or a boss fighter. You'll find it spawning in caves on most maps, the southeastern side of Extinction City where the deep trench of the shallow water lies, if that even makes sense, and of course very commonly in Aberration's blue and red zones. Tamed via typical knockup methods, if taming one on any other map that isn't Aberration, they will wake up during the nighttime at around 8:30 PM and stay awake until roughly 5:15 AM, where they will curl up into a ball and go back to sleep all day. So it's best to starve tame one, as you will probably have to knock it out a few times to drain its food enough so that it can eat all the taming food in one go, as you could lose it all if it ends up waking up during feeding. But this does all depend on your taming rates, of course. I play on 1x rates and had to knock this 140 out twice to tame it in a 1er. Preferring superior kibble for the best taming efficiency, once tamed can be saddled up at level 57. If woken up during the daytime, they receive the groggy debuff. When in this state, they are super sluggish, attacks deal much less damage, and have a much higher stamina drain. They even lose stamina gradually over time when doing nothing, so they are basically useless in the daytime, which is why most people shy away from taming one at all. However, once the clock strikes 8:30 PM, you will have a beast like no other. They are fast, agile, and extremely powerful, boasting a much higher base damage than the Rex at nighttime, while also having similar health to one. With its secondary attack, it can grab small creatures and humans, and carry them around if need be, or crunch down on its prey and eat them whole. Of course, on Aberration it is constantly awake, which makes it the alpha predator of Aberration, and the best damage dealer for almost any occasion. With its relatively high base health and high damage in attacks, makes it the perfect boss fighter in most arenas, especially now that unridden Megalosaurus in Ark Survival Ascended now use their primary attack over the secondary attack, which was the case in Ark Survival Evolved. This makes them 10 times more viable for boss fights, and the Megalosaurus used here were just perfect tame 150s, bred and imprinted with around 600 to 800 damage after levels, which goes to show how powerful they really are. Just be sure to time your boss fights perfectly after 8:30 PM, as the last thing you want is for them to take a cheeky nap, sleeping on the job in the arena. And that is going to be the end of the video for today. I hope you all enjoyed it and found it helpful, and if you did, please don't forget to like, comment, share around, and subscribe for more, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Take care, goodbye.
What?
Video games are an expensive hobby, but at the same time, games are cheaper and more accessible today than ever before. When the Atari 2600 launched in 1977, it cost $200, which doesn't sound...
Breaking news, a dangerous toxic gas is causing people to only say the first 4 words of a sentence, then die. We go live to Lisa at the scene. Tom, I'm standing here. Breaking news,
Wait, what does that button do? Oh, nah, it's not a button, dude. I mean, it kind of does look like it, though, huh? Yeah, it does. Yo, dude, what does that metal
bring dinner, I can make 3 big juicy dumplings using this small tiny dog.
Dumpling.
Bit
Three
so
good.
easy.
Dirty
No
dumpling.
need to touch a small piece. Just throw
The troll.
all
Troll. Troll.
I've got 24 hours to get rid of this. For the entire. I've got 24 hours to get rid of this bruise. For the entire scheme I've been setting up for 18 years goes up in smoke, and you are wearing hand-dragon knife. Thirsty? I've got 24 hours to get rid of this bruise. For the entire scheme I've been setting up for 18 years goes up in smoke, and you are wearing hand-dragon knife. Thirsty? I've got 20. I've got. Oh, I'm slipping. Oh, I'm slipping. Oh, I'm falling. Whoa! What the fuck? What the? What? How'd you get here? Hey, fuck it. I respect how having a family changed your life's focus, especially after your kid was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis. That's what we did this time. To pay for her care with funds. So you're putting food in her plate. Too bad you can't put air in her lungs.
Don't you have people auditioning in the studio today?
I left Phineas in charge for now. Is your crutch all good? Crazy! What the fuck? seconds. Bottom line, I'm gonna take you down.
Okay. You have to give me a minute. He hasn't let me out in weeks.
I need Banner.
Banner's not home. Now leave me alone.
Listen, Bigfoot. If you don't give me Bruce Banner in the next 3 seconds, bottom line, I'm gonna take you down.
Okay. You have to give me a minute. He hasn't let me out in weeks.
I need Banner.
Banner's not. Okay. Okay.
Oh, hey, fuck. Hey. I was going fast, everybody. What is this? What? No. Doctor, what are you doing?
I won't let you take her. I won't let you take her. Jesus.
Doctor, what are you doing?
I won't let you take her. I won't let you take her.
Well, how would I get in touch with you guys?
You go straight to Nickerdale.
I'll tell you what. .com? It's our website. Nickerdale.com.
I'm positive I'm not hearing that right.
He goes, "You plan on bowling today?" I go, "Yeah." I'm off. I'm gonna bowl with it. He goes, "You're not bowling." I get a little bewildered. What do you mean I'm not bowling today? He goes, "It's a league day. Every lane is full for the rest of the night." I go, "You gotta be fucking kidding me." I don't say that. I go, "Okay." Because at this point, I'm past the point of being upset. Like, I wasted 3 hours, 4 hours trying to hit a bowling ball. So I'm not letting it faze me. So I drive to a third bowling alley. Because the other one's packed now that I was originally at. So I drive to a third bowling alley. I pull up, ladies at the front desk. I got my bag on me. I'm ready to bowl, baby. I'm ready to bowl. I got my new ball. I ain't using no dumbass house ball. My thumb, in the first bowl I do, my thumb barely makes it out of that ball. It gutters. I go, okay. Got strap in here. Let me lock in, okay? New ball, new minute. I go in for the second throw, like 8 or 10 players. I go in. I release the ball. My thumb does not come out. Normally your thumb comes out and then your fingers come out and you flick it, right? Like you do like a, and it curves. My thumb does not come out. My whole body fucking flies into the lane. And I basically face plant. I go, there's no fucking way, right? Because if you're in a group of people, you can laugh it off. I wish I had a video of this. Because it's like, everybody sucks at bowling. I look like a dummy. I stand up, brush myself off. I hit the left hook, nobody's looking at me. Thanks. I hit the right hook, there's a guy just going 3 lanes over, staring at me.
So I'm kind of thinking I won't stream with you today to see if that's the cause, and if it is the cause of it. So I'm kind of thinking I won't stream with you today to see if that's the cause, and if it is the cause of it. So I'm kind of thinking I won't stream with you today to see if that's the cause, and if it is the cause of it. What time it is? That's right. Time to get even more horrified. Welcome to the story of Balthazar Gerard. This dude was actually a trained assassin who committed the greatest sin
That's right. He messed with the rich people. Which rich people did he mess with in particular? Prince William the Silent. And by mess with, I mean he shot him in the chest with two flintlock pistols. This may come as a shock, but William the Silent did indeed not survive the attack. I won't go too in-depth into the situation, but I just want you to know that this assassination could have been a video all on its own. The man shot a dude, ran away with his dozens of bodyguards, and almost got away with it. He was running to a moat that he was about to jump into, and was planning on floating away on a pig's bladder. But then, he slipped on a pile of garbage, and he got caught. What time it is? That's right. Time to get even more horrifying. Welcome to the story of Balthazar Gerard. This dude was actually a
What's the emergency? I pushed the wrong button. Let's go. Accident.
Where's Thor? He went to Asgard with Vision.
He did. Who knows if any of this junk can get me to Asgard? By the power of Thor! But Hulk instead of Thor! Take me to Asgard! Fire! This could be a really long day. Alright, we're gonna do a 3 at a time now. Try to speed up the process a little bit. We'll see how this goes. Is it heavy? No! It's 1,000 pounds at least. There's no way to lift that. Holy shit! This is heavier than a normal wheel tire. Yeah. Basically now what we're gonna do is just take these off, move them to the front, take the new wheels again, do the process over, and we should be good. We traveled 1 mile exactly in 1 hour and 22 minutes. Not bad. We got 1.9 miles per gallon. Alright, you guys get the gist of this. We're gonna speed up the last two. 1 and 2. Alright. Pull this baby out. Little puppy. It's actually AFK. You need a crib. I'm gonna pretend I'm not here anymore. Let me ask you something. You ever get self-conscious when you're the Spider-Man of this universe?
I don't know. There's been a game. Oh, last year we had Miles Morales.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, but they got him.
What does that mean?
I liked him too.
What do you mean?
He used to share his web shooters. Good guy.
think I'm hitting the gym with Cheyenne. What? I'll probably ask her for a ride. What's the mystery box? Yeah, so dumb? How you miss country? Mama, are you dumb? You miss country.
Actually, a lot of black people you will talk to say they prefer the races in China over the United States. They just listen to me differently because here they see a lot in words, whereas in the States it's more cold. Mildly. But in China it's just different. It doesn't seem like they mean especially when I speak Chinese, I don't know how most people or at least in the place that I've been kind of accept me, I guess. I don't know how else to explain that, but they won't be like, oh, get out of my store. They won't follow me around in the store and see if I'm trying to steal something. They won't, like, I don't know, be rude to me. Now, that's not the case for all black people. Again, I'm the Obama.
About to meet you.
Actually, so when you have kind of dark that Chinese people are more comfortable, I guess. And I'm the Obama black, I guess, that Chinese people are more comfortable with. So when you have kind of darker skinned black people, their experiences are much, much different than mine.
About to meet you. Real peanut butter.
Damn, mama. Damn. Damn, mama. Damn, do you got any doo-doo-doos? Damn, mama-roo. Damn, mamba doo-doo-doo. Damn, mamba zoo. I just burped all over the place. All over the race. All over my ace. You're a biddle biddle. Well, would you like to puff up since I'm certainly not driving? Okay, maybe you'll hit it now instead. Maybe you'll hit it once. You won't hit it once with me? Okay, I love you. potential. Higher potential. You got a torrential downfall with your big thought. I don't know what a tech transmitter does. mother! I love you. Huh? What'd you say? Oh, shoot, I forgot to plug it back in. I'm sorry. It wasn't too long ago. I'll plug it back in right now if you'd like me to. I can, Mama. What do you say, Mama? Bumble, Guy must have been scared when I actually jumped up and started hitting him. He tried to shoot me, and he missed the first shot. So I jumped up, I started punching him because I had nothing. Oh boy, I want to find one of these motherfuckers when I have gear and, you know, I have a fighting chance. I would blast him. Yep, he's flying away right now. There he goes. Yep. Got my stuff and he's flying away. Try and watch where he goes. Not coming back out this side. Let's see if we can spot him out this way. There he is. I'm gonna try and get him with an Argentavis, I think. I see him up there. I'm gonna buy an Argentavis and try and get him with it. Damn, he's going. He's going right now. Where'd he go? Is that him? That's not him. He's probably just going to the drop. He's close because I heard him whistle. Is that him? No. This guy, he definitely killed me and he wanted to, so I'm gonna make his shit difficult. Try and get these drops from him. May as well. Let's use the sergeant. Let's use it. Get this and get out. Whatever's in here, all I know is that it doesn't get it. Hit me. Just hit me, Mom. Asshole's after me, man. You want some, motherfucker? Yeah, come get some. Come get some. Come on, get some, motherfucker. Let's descend and then let's ascend. Where's he at, man? Did he get me? He got me. Yep, he got me, man. He got me. He is after me. No, I'm not dead yet. I meant it like, oh, I'm gonna die. He ain't get me just yet. He's definitely still on me. Yep, he's getting me, Mama. He's trying to get me. Is there anything in my inventory that can help me? Not really, no. Got me Keko. He got me, Mom. He got me. Yeah, he got me. He had a better bird. He has a melee weapon. Well, I'm fighting him with the equivalent of nothing, so it's fair that he's winning. It's fair. See if I can still get him. I might be able to get him back. Maybe, maybe not. Never know. He's going up to kill my bird, I think. What a bum. Dude, he's literally such a hater. Yeah, we're gonna spend an extra 50 because he's trying to kill the bird. He's trying to kill the bird that I just, like, got out of the thing, so... We're gonna try and go up there and kill him. Come on, let me open the shop, you jerk off. They're in the sky there. asshole is still up there attacking my dinosaur, I think. Is he? Can't tell. No, he's not. Ah. Shit, he got me, dude! Got me again. Can't believe that. Oh, these are mine. Sweet. Pump their melee up so any hit from one of these Argentavis kills the freaking guy. And I'll ride this one. Pump up his stamina a bit. A bit more. Fighting him. I have 2 birds and he has 1 bird. My guys are going pretty well on him. Did they kill him? Was a dodo? What the hell? Odd. He dropped a dodo down. Picked me and he's got me under the map now. He's finally figured out how to drop me. Finally figured it out. He got me, man. He got me again. He doesn't know I have a bed right near him, so I'm gonna be back in 10 seconds. My birds, they're whistled on aggressive, so. My sweet mother. There. Get some You barely got out, mama. You barely got out, you did. You got a better turning circle than me. to lure me up, but I'm not gonna take it. Oh, dog fight him. I'm gonna dog fight him. So I'm gonna spin him like this. The plan is to spam attack when I'm not blocking him. Look! There he is. Get him. Can I get him? No. Is he running? Level that bird's stamina before fighting me, boy. No, you don't. I lost him. Where is he? Shadows. Shit, right. Got me. I'm done for. Yeah, he's got me. Got me, man. I'm back on the bird. One more round, bastard. Get some. You didn't get your stamina back, did you? No, you didn't. He's gotta be out soon. There he is, come on, I'm just not fast enough. He goes away, and then he's back up and at it. Why do we fight? Why do we fight? That's the question at hand. Did he escape? Is he gone? Are we free of one another? There. Nope. might get him. We might get him. We might get him while he's unaware. We might get him while he's unawares. We might get him. While his bird's fighting another thing. There he is. There he is. There he is. There he is. Fucker. Yeah, we got him! We actually did it. We killed him. Give him his fucking bird. He can die. Here's your reward, Kiko. Good game, dickhead. Feel not so bad at all. I don't feel bad. I won. That's all that happened there. I won. Bird alive. Icarus saddle, dire bear saddle, fabricated sniper rifle. I've got his taming kit, so you know what? I think that's enough. I do think that's enough. I'm knocking his bird out to see what's in the inventory. Oh yeah, give me all that. Professionals have standards. Us professionals have standards. Let's see if he comes back for it. birds. Oh no. That thing's killing the bird for sure. Bro, it killed the bird. Bro, I'm trying to... really trying to keep an enemy bird alive now. Kill it. That looks dead to me. It's still alive, barely. I wonder what's so heavy that's weighing me down so much. Sarco saddle, Megalodon, Pike. That's what he was killing me with. Dinotherium, Dire Bear, Arthroplurus, Stego, Patchy, Pteranodon, Crossbow, Long Neck, Good Kibble, Better Pike. Oh yeah. Get rid of that first one, honestly. Tapehara? Okay, cool. Never had a Tapehara. Good try, man. Still chasing somehow. Did something. Mom, I ended up winning against him. Raptor, Tapehara. Lamantria, Mantis, Therizino. Guess I'll keep it Therizino. Honestly, I don't want any of this stuff. I don't want any of it, honestly. I think I'm gonna give the guy all the stuff back. After he killed me multiple times, I killed him once. How can I? He's in the same spot. He won't. He won't. He won't know that. And if he kills me, so what? Like, I just don't... I'm tired of the game. I don't want to play it right now. Oh, look, he's traveling around. I'm gonna try and give him all his stuff back. Yup. He killed me instead. So he's good for him. I've got a rival now. I'm happy for it.
Like, you can't communicate with other players.
I tried to, but he's just not typing back. So we're gonna leave it there. You know? I didn't want any of the stuff that I got from him. Like, he just got his kit back and he got his stuff back. So good for him. Maybe I'll find him another day. But for now, I just want to be finished. And I got a good kill on him. He was on, all it took was one. That's the thing. He killed me multiple times. I spawned in on him because I had a bed nearby. All it took was one kill. I took all of his stuff. And I could have flown off. I chose to just look at all of his stuff, and I said, I don't really want it. I was going to go give it back to him, but he killed me instead of giving me the chance to give it back to him. I left his bird alive. I could have killed that thing so fast. I could have murdered that thing, but I left it alive, and I protected it from an Argentavis. I am a good person, even when this world is literally full of rat bastards and hell. I hope the motherfucker knows that I was nice to him. I didn't have to leave his bird alive. I didn't have to come back. I didn't have to give him the stuff. But he'll think he's hot shit. So, let's leave it at that. Good game. Boom. Let's restart the pooter. Mama Rooter. You're a dude to do.